58 seconds of out of stock, buttons during a flash sale, a full minute of lost revenue. ISR's Stale-While-Revalidate pattern served old data because the timer hadn't expired. In Next.js 15, Revalidate was a page-level export. In Next.js 16, it is configured via the fetch next, revalidate option or segment config export. The article uses the newer fetch-based syntax, which is correct for Next.js 16. If using Next.js 15, you would export const revalidate equals 60 from the page component instead. The article mentions server actions for manual revalidation, but doesn't show a complete example. Here is a concrete server action that revalidates both a path and a tag, callable from a form or button. The article explains content delivery network interaction, but doesn't emphasize that Stale-While-Revalidate at the content delivery network level, e.g., Cloudflare, can extend the stale window beyond the ISR timer. Always set Stale-While-Revalidate to a value less than or equal to your ISR revalidate to avoid serving stale data for longer than intended. The article suggests adding logging, but doesn't show a production-ready pattern. Here is a reusable helper that logs regeneration events with structured data for analysis. Let's break down incremental static regeneration, ISR, in Next.js 16, how it works, and the exact mistake behind that failure. ISR allows static pages to be updated without a full redeploy. When a request comes in, the server serves the cached page immediately and triggers a background regeneration if needed. The current visitor always gets the cached version. Regeneration is for future visitors. The revalidate option defines the minimum time between regenerations, not the maximum staleness. After a fresh render, a timer starts. Requests within that window hit the cache. When the timer expires, the next request triggers a background regeneration while serving the stale page. Here's a typical ISR page. The fetch call includes revalidate 60. This tells Next.js to cache the response and regenerate at most every 60 seconds. But remember, regeneration happens on the next request after the timer expires, not immediately. To measure the stale window, add logging to your ISR pages. Log the render time and the data's timestamp. Compare these with CMS update times to see actual staleness in production. This code logs the render time and the product's updated at timestamp. The staleness seconds tells you how old the data was when served. Use this to monitor actual staleness in production. On-demand revalidation eliminates the stale window. When your CMS updates data, it calls a webhook that triggers revalidatePath or revalidate tag. This immediately marks the cache as stale, so the next request gets fresh data. This webhook handler accepts a secret and a type, path, or tag. It calls revalidatePath or revalidate tag to invalidate the cache. Use this endpoint from your CMS to trigger instant revalidation. generateStaticParams tells Next.js which routes to pre-render at build time. Combined with ISR, you can pre-build popular routes and generate less popular ones on first visit using fallback blocking. Here, we pre-build the top 100 products. The remaining products use ISR with fallback blocking. The first visitor triggers generation, and subsequent visitors get the cached page. Content Delivery Network caching adds another layer. If your content delivery network caches for 300 seconds, ISR with revalidate 60 is useless. Set cache control headers to align content delivery network TTL with your ISR revalidate value. This configuration sets cache control headers for product pages. smaxage equals 60 tells the content delivery network to cache for 60 seconds, and Stale-While-Revalidate equals 30 allows serving stale for 30 more seconds while revalidating. For time-sensitive data like buy buttons, use PPR with cache, no store, inside a suspense boundary. The static shell can use ISR, but critical components always fetch fresh data. Here, the product description uses ISR with revalidate 3600, but the buy button uses cache, no store, inside a suspense boundary. The buy button always fetches fresh inventory data. This is the same issue we highlighted at the start. Here's exactly why that happened. The page was built at 10:00 a.m. within stock. The timer started. At 10:10 a.m., the CMS restocked, but the timer was still active until 10:11 a.m. Users who visited at 10:10:58 got the stale cached page. The regeneration only triggered at 10:11 a.m. The root cause was treating revalidate 60 as a periodic refresh timer instead of a Stale-While-Revalidate cache pattern. This caused the page to serve stale data until the next request after the timer expired, not immediately after CMS update. The fix was to add on-demand revalidation. When the CMS updates inventory, it calls a webhook that triggers revalidatePath. This immediately marks the cache as stale. The next request gets fresh data. The buy button now uses PPR with cache, no store, for zero staleness. Many developers think revalidate 60 means the page updates every 60 seconds. In reality, it means the page regenerates at most once every 60 seconds, triggered by a request. The current visitor always gets stale data if the timer hasn't expired. The original code only used time-based revalidation. Without on-demand revalidation, the stale window lasted 58 seconds. Adding a webhook that calls revalidatePath eliminates this delay. If your content delivery network caches for 300 seconds, but ISR revalidates every 60 seconds, users see stale data for 5 minutes. Always align content delivery network smaxage with your ISR revalidate value. To debug ISR, check the Next.js cache header. Hit means cached, stale means regeneration triggered, miss means no cache. Add logging to your page component to track render timestamps. Use curl to force a regeneration. Let's run through some common interview questions. How does ISR revalidate work? Stale-While-Revalidate. Timer limits region frequency. Current visitor gets stale data. How to eliminate stale window for flash sale? On-demand revalidation via webhook. PPR for critical data. Content delivery network purge. Difference between ISR and PPR. ISR caches whole page. PPR splits into static shell plus dynamic streaming holes. And a few frequently asked questions. How fast does ISR update? With time-based, after timer expires plus next request. With on-demand, within seconds. Does current user get fresh data? No, current user gets stale data. Regeneration is for next user. Difference between revalidate and on-demand? Revalidate is time-based fallback. On-demand is immediate invalidation. Let's recap the key takeaways. ISR equals Stale-While-Revalidate, not cron job. Revalidate, N is lower bound on region frequency. Stale window can be up to 2 n seconds. On-demand revalidation eliminates stale window. Ready to go deeper? Up next. Server actions deep dive, forms, validation, and progressive enhancement, then environment variables and configuration in Next.js 16, then testing Next.js applications, unit, integration, and eTWE testing and internationalization, I18N in Next.js 16. Find them all at TheCodeForge.io. Thanks for watching. The full article and code examples are covered in detail at TheCodeForge.io.